Namaste and good morning, everyone. Let's do the prayers first. Om Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parbrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Om Bhurbhuva Swaha, Tatsavitruvarenyam, Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi, Dhiyo Yo Naha Prachodayat. Asto ma saddhamya, tamso ma jyotirgamya, mrityurma amritam gamya. Om Sena Bhavatu Sena Bhunaktu Saviryam Karvavahi Tejasvi Navadhitamastu Ma Vidveshavagi. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Let's open our Uddhava Gita books, chapter number 15 and page number 471. 71. So this title of this chapter is Explanation of the Vedic Path. So let's look at the verse number 27. Kaminaha kripnaha lubdha pushpeshu fal buddhya agni mugdha dhum tantaha swam lokam na vidanti te. Materialistic men who are naturally very lusty and greedy think the flowery words of the Vedas to be their actual purpose. Being blinded by the smoke and glare of the sacrificial fire, they cannot understand their actual position. In the next 8 verses, Shri Krishna exposes the evil-mindedness of the Mimamsaks, those who consider the irrelevant results of karma to be their aim of life, become absorbed in the performance of Vedic sacrifices, which can be compared to a glaring fire. As a result, they are overcome by the smoke produced by that fire and thus lose their power of discrimination. While blinded by the smoke, they wander on the path of material existence and thus experience countless miseries. So if we get attached to the fruits or the means and forget the ultimate purpose, that's what he's talking about. You are losing the real purpose of doing those Vedic rituals. Verse number 28. Nate mam ang jananti hridi satam ya idam yata ukt shashtrahi asutripo yatha nihar chakshusha. This is verse number 28. My dear Uddhava, those who perform the Vedic rituals in the hopes of achieving future sense gratification cannot understand that I am situated within the hearts of all living entities, and that this universe is not different from me, being a manifestation of my energy. It is as if their eyes are covered by a dense fog. Although the Lord is situated in the hearts of the Mimamsaks, they do not know him as the original cause of the cosmic manifestation. The false bodily concept of life, in which one ignores the eternal soul within the body, is a dense fog of ignorance that blocks our vision of God. Mimamsaks refer to those whose eyes are covered with fog of ignorance. It is stated in the Vedas, and the Supreme Lord is situated within the hearts of all living entities at the super soul. However, because people are covered by ignorance and indulge in idle talks, they cannot know him. In spite of the Lord's existence within the hearts of all living entities, they still engage in sense gratification and thus lose their power of vision. So he's saying, I'm everywhere. God is everywhere. in our hearts also, in everybody's hearts also, but we just don't pay much attention to that fact. We concentrate only on the Prakriti, the Maya. Verse 29 and 20 and 30, they go together. 29. Te me matam vigyaye proksham vishyatmakah hinsayam yadi ragah syad yagya evna chodnaha. Verse number 30. Hinsa vihara hi alabdhe pashubhi swasukhechya yajante devata yagye pitri bhut pratinpala. If one has a propensity for violence in the form of eating meat, one may slaughter an animal during the performance of a fire sacrifice. By this statement, the Vedas have regulated the propensity for violence. The Vedas neither encourage animal slaughter nor prescribe it. Without understanding my inner intentions, fruitive workers who are fond of violence worship the demigods, forefathers, and leaders of ghostly creatures with a desire to achieve heavenly pleasure, and thus they cruelly slaughter innocent animals in sacrifice. Although the Vedas sometimes recommend the performance of animal sacrifices, this is actually meant to restrict the killing of animals, not to encourage it. Because there's always a class of men who will eat meat, the Vedas prescribe the performance of elaborate rituals at certain prescribed times just to discourage unrestricted animal slaughter. It is only misguided philosophers that encourage the sacrifice of animals as a means for enjoying sense gratification in this life and attaining the planets of the demigods or forefathers after death. Being influenced by the mode of ignorance, there are many people who consider the performance of sacrifices mentioned in the Vedas to be their supreme religious duty. Such people generally worship the forefathers, demigods, and ghosts in order to enjoy a life of sense gratification, both in this world and the next, and thus they take pleasure in killing animals in the name of performing sacrifices. Verse number 31. Swapnoho upamam amumam lokam asantam shravan priyam आशीषो हृदय संकल्पया त्यजन्ते अर्थान yatha vanikam. Just as a foolish businessman desiring to obtain additional wealth may cross the insurmountable ocean and invest his previously accumulated wealth speculatively and thus lose everything. Fruitive workers desiring to experience heavenly pleasure after death, which is only like a dream, whimsically waste their time performing Vedic sacrifices. Fruitive workers are actually very unfortunate. This is being pointed out in this verse. Both in this world and in the heavenly planets, life is temporary. Materialistic people resolve to enjoy like a king in this world and so seek the demigods' blessings for their purpose. Still, they're always full of anxieties. They spend a huge amount of wealth for conducting Vedic sacrifices, just as a merchant takes the risk of crossing the insurmountable ocean in the hopes of accumulating great wealth. However, in the long run, both lose their hard-earned wealth while making a risky journey that does not provide eternal benefit. It is the nature of material existence that causes everyone to work very hard for the purpose of enjoying sense gratification as far as possible. As eternal, fragmental parts and parcels of the Lord, we can enjoy a blissful life in His association. But instead, we waste our time struggling for existence in this illusory material manifestation. It is something like a businessman who foolishly squanders all his wealth on a useless business venture that yields no profit. So he's talking about the sakam bhakti over here. When we do those actions, thinking that we're going to get some kind of a material reward, that's foolish. Verse number 32. Raja Sattva Tamo Nishtaha Raja Sattva Tamo Yusha Upasat Indamukhyana Devadin Yathev Mama. Fruitive workers are under the influence of the three modes of material nature: goodness, passion, and ignorance. And they worship the demigods. And the demigods are what? Devtas, who are also under the influence of the three modes of material nature. But they fail to worship me, who am transcendental to the three modes of material nature. Although the demigods, headed by Indra, are parts and parcels of me, when they are worshipped as being independent from me, this constitutes an impropriety. Those who are under the influence of the three modes of material nature act according to their situation under the modes of nature. Although the demigods, headed by Indra, are parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord, worshipping them is not considered to be direct worship of the Lord. Sometimes persons situated in the mode of goodness accept the supremacy of the Supreme Lord, but are more attracted to the demigods, believing that through Vedic rituals they can achieve the same standard of living as the demigods. This proud tendency is certainly an obstacle in the loving service of the Supreme Lord and ultimately causes fall down. This is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita. In chapter 9, verse number 24, over there also Lord Krishna says, I am the only enjoyer and master of all sacrifices. Aham hi sarva yajnanam bhogta cha prabhur evacha. Therefore, those who do not recognize me, my true transcendental nature, fall down. Those who consider themselves to be the servants of the demigods can overcome the influence of the modes of passion and ignorance by acting in the mode of goodness. However, although they enthusiastically worship the demigods, headed by Indra, they have no taste for worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Even the demigods, who are supposed to be situated in the mode of goodness, often oppose the worship of the Supreme Lord, creating a situation that is inauspicious. So in the Purans, we see several stories which give us this kind of a message. Verse number 33 and 34. Ishtev devta yagyer gatvaha rasya mahe divi tasyant ihe bhuyasma mahashala mahakula evam pushpitya vacha vyakshipt मनसाम निरिनाम मानिनाम च अति लुब्धनाम मद वार्तापि न रोचते. Discussions about me are not pleasing to those who are greedy and proud. So that means they don't want to talk about God. And whose minds are attracted to the flowery words of the Karam Kand sections of the Vedas. Because of their excessive pride and greed, they think we will go to heaven as a result of worshipping the demigods and enjoy immense happiness there. When our enjoyment is exhausted, we will return to this world, being born in a family of aristocratic householders. The attached, fruitive workers think that they will perform sacrifice in this world to please the demigods, and when they finish enjoying heavenly delights, they will return to this world to become rich householders. Bewildered by the flowery words of the Vedas, greedy and proud materialists do not have any interest in satisfying the senses of the master of the senses. Okay, so master of the senses is the mind. Verse number 35. Vedaha Brahmatma Vishyas Trikand Vishyaha ime Prokshvada Rishyaha Proksham Mamacha Priyama. The Vedas, which consists of 3 divisions, reveal that the soul is spiritual and has nothing to do with material existence. The soul is not a product of matter. Great sages explain this truth in an esoteric manner, and I approve of their confidential teachings. Those who are pure-hearted are eligible to receive Vedic knowledge, whereas those whose hearts are contaminated certainly fall down. So the pure heart, the clean heart is essential to understand all this. The Vedas are divided into 3 sections referred to Karma Kand, the Brahma Kand, and Devata Kand. The Vedic literature teaches the science of the individual spirit, soul, and the supreme Brahman. Human beings are supposed to worship the supreme personality of Godhead by chanting the mantras that are revealed in the Vedic literature. The question may arise, why do the sages and the Vedic mantras speak in esoteric or indirect terms? The answer is the Supreme Lord does not allow himself to be taken cheaply. And thus he is not manifest to superficial or inimical people. One who depends upon material sense perception remains in gross ignorance of the absolute truth. One who depends upon mental and intellectual speculation may get a clue that the eternal soul and supersoul are both within the material body. In this regard, one should study the 10th verse of the Upadeshamrit of Shri Rupa Goswami. So what is that verse? In the Shastra, it is said that of all types of fruitive workers, he who is advanced in knowledge of the higher values of life is favored by the Supreme Lord. Out of many such people who are advanced in knowledge, Jnanis, one who is practically liberated by virtue of his knowledge, may take to devotional service. He is superior to the others. However, one who has actually attained prema, pure love of Krishna, is superior to them. The gopis are exalted above all the advanced devotees because they are always totally dependent upon Shri Krishna, the transcendental cowherd boy. Among the gopis, Srimati Radharani is the most dear to Krishna. Her Kund lake is as profoundly dear to Lord Krishna as this most beloved of the gopis. Who then will not reside at Radha Kund and in a spiritual body surcharged with ecstatic devotional feelings, render loving service to the divine couple of Shri Shri Radha Govinda, who perform their Astaklihe Leela, their eternal eightfold daily pastimes. Indeed, those who execute devotional service on the banks of Radha Kund are the most fortunate people in the universe. So this is the translation of the verse, the 10th verse of that Upadeshamrita of Shri Rupa Goswami. So he's trying to elaborate on that verse. So verse number 36. Shabad Brahm Sudurbodham Pranendriyam Manomeyam Anantparam Gambhiram Durvigahyam Samudrvat. The transcendental sound of the Vedas is very difficult to comprehend and manifests on different levels within the life, air, senses, and mind. Actually, the transcendental sound of the Vedas is unlimited, unfathomable, and very grave, like an ocean. So it's like it's so profound, so deep. It's very hard to understand for a very superficial average mind. That's what he's trying to tell us. The transcendental sound vibrations of the Vedas exists in 4 stages, as understood by those who are highly qualified Brahmins. 3 of these stages are internally situated, and only the 4th stage is manifest externally as speech. Even this 4th stage of the Vedas is very difficult for ordinary people to understand. And so what to speak of the other 3? The prana stage of the Vedic sound vibration is located in the Adhara chakra. The mental stage is located in the region of the navel in the Manipur chakra. The intellectual stage is located in the region of the heart, the Anahat chakra. And the sensory stage is referred to as the Vahikara. The transcendental vibration of the Vedas encompasses all the energies within the creation and is beyond the limitations of time and space. It is so subtle and sublime that only the Lord himself and his representatives can understand its actual purport. Because foolish people consider the transcendental name of Lord Hari to be equal to ordinary mundane sound vibrations, while remaining engaged in sense enjoyments with their body, mind, and life here, the Supreme Lord appears the incomprehensible to them. The transcendental name of the Supreme Lord and the Supreme Lord himself are non-different. Because transcendental sound vibrations and the object of transcendental sound vibrations are unfathomable, no one can realize their glories without the mercy of the Supreme Lord. The 4 levels of transcendental sound, Para, Pashyanti, Madhyama, and Vaikhari, are completely transcendental, devoid of material contamination and untouched by the spirit of mundane enjoyment. Therefore, the mentality of sense enjoyers and dry renunciates makes a distinction between transcendental sound and its object, thereby inviting inauspiciousness. Verse number 37. Mayo apravihitam bhumanaha brahmananand shaktinah bhuteshu ghosharupena viseshu nev lakshyate. I am the unlimitedly powerful Supreme Lord, situated within the bodies of all living beings, wherein I establish the subtle form of transcendental sound. Transcendental sound vibration manifests in different phases according to the inspiration of the Supreme Lord. The question may arise, if the Supreme Lord is one without a second, how is it possible that he remains present as unlimited spiritual and material manifestation? The answer is given in this verse. I am the Almighty Lord. I manifest innumerable forms of unlimited potency, and by the expansion of these forms, I am all pervading. For those who can perceive me in meditation, I am realized in Omkar within the heart. In this verse, the Lord cites the example of a strand of fiber within a lotus stem. So we all know that this Om, that Nad going on everywhere, all the time. But we are so connected with the loud noises, we don't hear this transcendental sound. Because the holy name of the Lord and the Supreme Lord himself are identical, descriptions such as all-pervading, all-powerful, unlimited, and the super soul are befitting him and no one else. All these adjectives describe the Lord's transcendental qualities and are devoid of any mundane tinge. as a fiber is inseparable from the stem of a lotus, the Supreme Lord is inseparable from his holy name. And thus both the Lord and his holy names are the objects of the liberated soul's worship. Okay? So Bhagavan ka naam, but the Lord himself. It's the same thing. Next three verses, 38, 39 and 40. यथोर्नभि हृदया उर्नाम उद्मते मुखात आकाशाद घोषवान प्राणो मनसा स्पर्श रूपिना छंदोमयो अमृतमया सहस्र पदवीं प्रभु ओम काराद दयंजित स्पर्श स्वरोष भांत सथा भूषिताम विचित्रः भाषा वितताम छंदो भी चतुर उत्तरः अनंत पाराम बृहतीम सृजते अक्षिपते स्वयं. Just as a spider produces its web from its mouth, the Supreme Lord manifests himself as the primeval vital air, consisting of all the sacred Vedic meters and full of transcendental pleasures. The Lord from the sky of his heart creates the unlimited Vedic sound through the agency of his mind. The sound vibrations of the Vedas then spread in all directions, adorned with the various letters, meters, consonants, vowels, and semi-vowels. The Vedas are expressed in different meters, each having 4 more syllables than the previous ones. Ultimately, the Supreme Lord withdraws the unlimited and unfathomable manifestations of Vedic sound within himself. So that's why we call the Vedic knowledge or Vedic mantras are eternal. They are not old, they are eternal. They come from the mouth of Brahma, then they go back there. Creation happens again, they come back again, eternally. Just as a spider brings forth its web from its heart and produces it through its mouth, the plenary portion of the Supreme Lord, who is the source of Brahma, manifests the Vedic knowledge by means of his potency. With the support of the sky, the Vedic knowledge, along with the vital life air, then enters the heart of Brahma. The word ghosh means sound. Transcendental sound vibrations in the form of the Vedic literature is thus revealed by the Supreme Lord in this way. It is the Supreme Lord and nothing else that is to be realized by one's study of the Vedas. Okay? So again and again, he's telling us the ultimate goal is not to have this matter or become the king of the matter. Okay? The purpose of doing all this is know God to become one with God. Verse number 41. Gayanye ushinag anuштап च बृहति पंकिटर एव च त्रिष्टो जगत्यः अति छंदो हि अत्यष्ठ अति जगाद विराट. The Vedic meters are Gayatri, Ushnik, Anushtup, Brihitri, Pankati, Trishtup, Jagati, Ati Chand, Atyashti, Ati Jagati, and Ati Virat. So these are like a different meters. And you have a small book, most of you, a little book written by our Guruji. Okay, he wrote like I think there are 50 Ved mantras in there. And if you look at on the top of each mantra, he has written what kind of a chant that is. Is it Gayatri or is it V43, or is it Anushtup? So these are the different chants. Okay. So the Gayatri meter has 24 syllables, and the Ushnik meter has 28 syllables. There are other meters such as Ateshti, Jagati, Ativirat, and of which are defined in the Vedas. Verse number 42. Kim vidyate, kim achashtehe, kim anudhya vikalpate cha, iti asyaha idam loke na anyo mad ved kaschan. I am the actual knower of the Vedas, and it is me that is to be known by the study of the Vedas. It is clearly telling us what is the goal of studying the Vedas, to know God. That which is to be known, that which is prescribed, and that which is actually revealed by the Vedas remains a mystery to the conditioned souls, Jivatma. It is to be understood that whatever has been prescribed in the Vedas is meant for the ultimate benefit of all living entities. There are so many individual opinions that answer the question, what is the actual purport of the Vedic statements? What do the Vedas actually teach? The Vedas teach that one should chant mantras 3 times a day, offer oblations to the forefathers, and perform numerous other prescribed rituals and duties. Does this mean that the Vedas simply encourage the living entities to perform fruitive activities? The answer is that all Vedic formulas are preliminary stages leading to the perfect stage of Krishna consciousness, in which one fully surrenders to the devotional service of the Lord. There are various processes recommended in the Vedic literature, such as Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga. All those processes are revealed by the Supreme Lord for the benefit of people having various qualifications. Foolish people think that by following any of these processes, one can attain the supreme perfection of life. That is why in this verse, the Supreme Lord says that it is He alone who knows the actual purport of the Vedas. Shri Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is one without a second. No one other than the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna knows the actual aim of the sacrifices prescribed in the Karamkand section of the Vedas. The goal of the mantras that are found in the Upasana Kand section of the Vedas, and the objective of the deliberations of the Gyan Kand section of the Vedas. The demigods, human beings, and great sages who are all subordinate to the Supreme Lord and who have a limited capacity for transcendental understanding cannot find out the actual intentions of the Vedas. The supreme absolute truth is the Lord Himself, who is the only shelter of all living entities and who is the only objective of all kinds of Vedic processes. Last verse of this chapter, verse number 43. Mam vidyate vidyate mam vikalpye upodhyate tvam aham etavan sarvedarthaha shabd asthaye mam vidam maya matram anudhyante pratishidhu prasidite. In the Karam Kand, the Vedas have described me as the goal of all sacrifices. And in the Devta Kand, the Supreme Lord of all kinds of worship. The Gyan Kand elaborately analyzes all material duality as being nothing but my illusory potency, and thus not separate from me. The transcendental sound vibration thus establishes me as the essential meaning of all Vedic knowledge. By all the Vedas, the Supreme Lord is to be known. Okay, so this is like ultimately, this is what the truth is, that we got to know God. The devotional service is described as being under the guidance of the internal potency of the Supreme Lord. and it is the constitutional duty of the living entities. The recommendation to perform sacrifices is meant to ultimately bring one to the platform of devotional service. It has been stated by the Supreme Lord, in the beginning of creation, I spoke the Vedic wisdom to Brahma, and thereafter it became known as Bhagavad Dharma. Indeed, I am the goal of the Vedas. After elaborately propagating the various paths of wisdom, the Vedas concluded that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the ultimate goal. The three kands of the Vedas propagated Karam, Gyan, and Bhakti. At the same time, it has refuted the path of Karam as well as the path of Gyan, or the cultivation of knowledge. First, the Vedas advocate that one renounce the performance of activities with attachment for the results, but instead engage in karma without any material desires. By such a practice, one gradually comes to the platform of Jnana, wherein one is advised to give up all fruitive activities, even if performed without material desires. When one comes to the platform of perfection of Jnana, one is advised to give up the very cultivation of knowledge while attempting to merge into transcendence. However, it is to be carefully noted that nowhere in any Vedic literature has it been advised that one should renounce the devotional service of the Lord. The teachings of the Vedas are based on the idea that eventually everyone must come to the platform of devotional service to the Supreme Lord. It has been concluded that the Supreme Lord is the ultimate shelter, that the processes of karam and gyan are by nature illusory. The performance of karam takes place within the jurisdiction of the three modes of material nature, and the cultivation of knowledge causes one to be situated in the modes of goodness. Therefore, ultimately, these processes are to be abandoned because they cannot lead one to the platform of transcendence. The Vedas felt immense pleasure by describing the wonderfully sweet qualities of devotional service, which is transcendental to the three modes of material nature. Indeed, it is a desire of the Vedas that the conditioned soul may drown in the transcendently sweet mellows of devotional service. So, in other words, all our karam, the actions, and the gyan we cultivate, that's all means to love God. So ultimately, it's just like love is the one which will unite us with God, the devotion. The sacrifices that are prescribed in the Karam Kand sections of the Vedas are manifestations of the Supreme Lord. The ultimate goal of all kinds of activities is certainly to satisfy the Supreme Lord. A multitude of Vedic paths of advancement have been promoted simply due to the conditioned soul's lack of love for the Supreme Lord. It is the Supreme Lord alone who is able to remove the coverings of the ignorance from the minds of the living entities. He is certainly the ultimate goal of all kinds of ritualistic performances found in the Vedas. In this material world, there is a distinction between an object and a sound that represents it. Because ordinary sounds are under the jurisdiction of material time and place, they are incompetent for ascertaining the nature of an object. The conditioned souls consider the objects that make up their material environment as meant for their personal enjoyment. When a person gives up this materialistic conception as being the enjoyer of all, he surveys and becomes inclined toward the Lord's devotional service. The distinction between an object and the sound that represents it is vanquished. At that time, one becomes liberated from the Lord's illusory energy, Maya, and obtains engagement in the transcendental service of the Supreme Lord. From the viewpoint of enlightenment, it can be understood that with every syllable, The Vedas declare the glories of the Supreme Lord and establish him as the supreme worshipable object for all classes of living beings. So eventually, we got to become one with God with the help of the Vedas, with the help of the ritual, with the help of the knowledge. The goal is to become one with Him, and that oneness will come through love, loving God. So this is the end of this chapter 15, and we'll start with chapter 16 next time, enumeration of the elements of material creation. So let's end the class here today. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaye Purnam Ev Avisheshyate. Om Shanti 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 Om. Thank you very much.